Yes, people, it's Cam, and here's how I went from a 0% close rate in July, where I had 34 calls and I closed 0 of them, to a 75% close rate in the first week of August, where I closed 3 calls in a row. And I did have one after that I didn't close, but let's just say I went 3 for 3, right? It just sounds a bit better. Okay, so first thing that I want to touch on is I had to actually accept that it was a problem, right? Like, there's a fine line between powering through something with volume and accepting that it has to change, okay? So I'm not someone that likes to make adjustments too quickly, but in the same breath, you do have to make adjustments at some point. You can't just keep shooting and missing, and just thinking that as long as you continue to shoot, you're going to hit the target. Now, the thing is, you will hit the target at some point, but if you keep not being able to close, you're never going to be able to scale to make the business that you want. So I had to accept that it was a problem. Now, for me personally, not closing a deal in 3 weeks is way too long, okay? So another thing that let me know that I was far off and things were going wrong was that I wasn't even getting close to a close. You know, sometimes you have a call and you'll be like, I think this guy's going to buy it. I wasn't even getting that, okay? So that was the first thing. Now, after I accepted it, what I did is I actually audited my calls. Now, you know me, I hate saying things like audit. It's just fancy jargon. Basically, I had to look into why other people weren't giving me their money, why I was talking to people and they didn't want to give me their money, okay? Now, I actually wrote notes down. So what actually happened is for 3 weeks, I didn't close a deal and I had many sales calls every day, okay? And at the end of each call, it got so bad where at the end of each call, I didn't even feel surprised. And before each call, I was a little bit, I wasn't even excited to take the call. I didn't even feel like I was going to make money. And I felt sad. I felt sorry for myself. Then one day I met my friend Ralphie, and I sat with him and he was just buzzing about something. I can't remember what it was. So then I came home and I actually did an audit. I looked at why people weren't buying and I wrote down in-depth notes. Now, what you'll also see from the days, if you go back, that this was on July the 14th. Then on the 19th and the 21st, I closed 2 deals. So it wasn't really the first week in August. It was the first few weeks of July and then the last week in July. But it wouldn't have sounded as good in a title. But these are 2 deals that I closed straight after. Okay, and there were the notes from it. So why people weren't giving me their money. These are the reasons that I realized. So the first thing was that we're at a higher price point than everyone else. So as you know, I like to go high ticket. But our problem was that at the time, I didn't look more valuable than anyone else. Okay, which meant there was no actual reason to buy from me. So, huge reason. Next thing was that the risks outweighed the benefits. Next thing was the perceived likelihood of achievement was way too low for the increase in price to make sense. Then, people weren't emotionally moved enough. I was way too feature-driven and consultative, which I do actually want to touch on for a little bit. So, I got to a stage where, because I was good at sales, I didn't even prepare for calls. I just turned up and thought that because I'm good and I know what I'm doing and I know how to scale people's businesses and it will be easy, I'll just turn up and they'll buy. Didn't happen. Next thing was that people weren't seeing, smelling and feeling their goals. And then the last thing was that I'm not forcing people into making decisions. So something about human beings is they will try to delay decisions for as long as possible. Right? So if you don't force someone to make a decision, they'll typically make no decision. Now, no decision or indecision on a sales call means they're not going to do anything. And someone not doing anything means that they don't buy. Okay? So, next thing I did is I had to change. And here's what I did to change. So, I actually built a pitch and I made sure to address every single point on my list. I actually built out a pitch. Because prior to that, I didn't have a pitch. As crazy as that is, I was so good at sales that I didn't have a pitch. I would just turn up and I would just freestyle. I still had a rough structure, but I thought I was that good that I could just turn up and just people are going to want to buy, right? Didn't work like that. Yeah, newsflash, that didn't work. Okay, so what I did. Now, the first 3 issues, what I realized, because I wrote these down in a bit of a sprawl, it was sporadic, it was like a brain dump. My missus got home, she saw me, I was just being sporadic, I was just writing things down, thinking. The first 3 things I realized they all tied into the same thing. So the first 3 were all actually a problem of perceived likelihood of achievement, which is the biggest reason that people don't buy. People don't believe you. That's why they don't buy it. They didn't believe that I was going to help them get to the goals that I was saying that I was going to help them get to. So for us, I was saying that for B2B clients, I was going to help them book more qualified calls and help to scale their business, right? Help them to book more high-ticket qualified calls and scale their business. But people didn't believe that. It's not that they didn't want high-ticket qualified calls. Of course they did. They just didn't believe that I was actually going to help them get there, okay? Now, what I had to do is I had to increase my perceived likelihood of achievement. And the way that I did that was I added more relevant testimonials, okay? Relevant testimonials are very, 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 very important. I had lots of testimonials, but the problem with testimonials is that people might even believe that you are an expert, but they don't know for sure that it's going to work for them, okay? Next thing I did is I actually built an airtight logical case as to why people should buy. Next thing I did is I made the overall offer a no-brainer, right? So I made what I was given to that person on that day a no-brainer so that they felt stupid saying no. Now, if you want me to make a separate video diving into how I did each of these things, I can touch on that. Next thing I did is I showed the actual numbers that we achieve and we've achieved before and we currently achieve. And I plugged their business into those numbers, right? So I showed their business the exact numbers that they would get. I actually showed it to them. And the next thing and the last thing I did was I built out 2 completely separate pitches, landing pages, etc. Now, as you guys know, and as I touch on, I love being niche down. And the more niche down you are, the more someone believes that you can help them with their problem. So the more niche down you look to a prospect, the more specialized you see, in which case, the more likely it is that you're going to help them achieve what you said you were going to do, right? Now, after I did that, I was able to make people actually see logically how it would work for them. Like I said, very, very big thing. Now, a big thing for this was showing people the actual numbers, showing them their numbers, making them agree. Do you see how this number will mean this will happen? So, for example, I might show people ads and I'll say, look, if you spend this much on ads, can you see how you're going to generate this many leads? Can you see how if you generate this many leads, you're going to generate this many booked calls? Can you see how if you generate this many booked calls, you're going to generate this many closes? Those micro commitments at each stage let someone to actually see the bigger picture and think that it's going to work for them. This is the biggest thing. They need to logically see how it's going to work for them. Okay? So, now I got that out of the way. The next thing that I needed to do to tackle those 3 things and to increase the perceived likelihood of achievement is I need to reduce the perceived risk. Because as much as perceived likelihood of achievement has to go up, perceived risk also has to go down, okay? Now, the way that I did that is I actually asked for less on the front end. So again, when I wasn't closing, I didn't have an ego and think I need to keep pitching at the time it was a 9K flat fee. I'll just say, do you know what? I'll do 3K, and in a couple of weeks, I'll get the other 3K from them based off of how well I do. And then after another couple of weeks, I'll get the other 3K. It's still a 9K lifetime value, but I made the perceived risk lower. Pay me the 3K. If in 2 weeks you're happy, give me another 3K. Perfect. Easier. The next thing I did is I actually threw in a 30-day happiness guarantee. Now, don't tell Tris that I did that because he does not like guarantees. But I wanted to make a way to make the perceived risk lower. Now, the way that I did that is I have a 30-day happiness guarantee. If you're not happy after 30 days, I'll give you your money back. Now, I don't rely on that in the pitch. It's a little throwaway that I give at the end, but it is there. It's there to reduce the risk, to make sure that you actually go ahead. Next thing, right? Now, I've got rid of all those 3. Those 3 things, I added them into my pitch. So now they aren't reasons that people aren't giving me money. But I still have to tackle 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? I have to tackle all of these for people to actually give me their money. So the next 3 are actually also together. So these 3, people aren't emotionally moved enough, way too feature driven, people aren't seeing, smelling, feeling their goals. They're also together, okay? So how I tackled that was I got people to talk about their goals more. The more I was able to get people to talk about their goals, the more that people were able to be emotionally moved. I really wanted to get people to talk about their goals. Now, the way I did this wasn't the cheesy, like, what would you do with the extra money? But I just got people to speak through what their business would look like, how things would look, how would they feel, but again, not in a cheesy way, in a very relaxed way. The next thing I did is I forced people to see, smell, and touch their goals and how they're 100% going to achieve their goals with you. So I would talk about what the business would look like. I would talk very in depth. I would future pace a lot. I would talk about how they're now going to have 6 sales reps instead of 3, and how each 6 sales reps what we're going to do exactly with them precisely. The more exact you can talk someone through the exact steps that you're going to take, the more they can see, smell, feel, touch, everything. You want to get them so close with their goals that at the end of the call, if they don't buy, they almost feel like you've stripped it away from them. Okay? Now, next thing I did, and I touched on this already, but I actually built out their numbers and I walked them through the numbers that they will achieve with us. And again, I made them agree that the numbers were fair. Now, at the end, if you agree with all the numbers, by the end of it, a big figure plops out of how much money we're going to help make you, and now you're excited to buy. Okay? So, now, we've actually got rid of all 6 of them. But I'm still left with the last problem. I'm still left with the last problem of I'm not forcing people into making decisions, right? And like I said, if you don't force people, and I will say force. I'm not gonna pussyfoot around it, right? It is force. You do have to force if we want to be nice and say encourage people. That's what it is. But you have to make people make a decision, because if you don't, someone's always going to opt for more time. Anytime you give someone a decision of do you want to do something now or do you want to think about it, people always want to think about it. Okay. Now, forcing people to make a decision. Now, one thing I will say, as much as you do force them into it, with a good pitch, it encourages people to take action quicker. The better your pitch is, the more likely you are to want to take action straight away. For example, if I said to you that I'll give you £1 million, you wouldn't say I need to think about it. You'd say, yes, I want it. All right. As long as the pitch is good, it encourages someone to take action quickly. But you should still make them go for it quicker just to help out. So here's some extras that I did. First, it was a mindset shift. That was the first thing that happened with me. And this is exactly what I wrote down on the sheet of paper. I said, be a savage, leave no money on the table. I then said, everyone has money. It's your job to take it off of them. So something that happens is when you're not doing well at sales, you'll start to convince yourself that, yeah, they didn't have money anyway and no, they couldn't afford it. It's not true, right? Anyone that joins the call and leaves with the same balance as you has beaten you. And I had to drill that into my mind. I had to. Sales is 1v1. It's a contact sport. If they leave without paying me, they sold me. I don't want to be sold. I want their money, right? I'm a salesman. I have to get in that mode. I'm not saying that's the best thing as a business owner, etc. But when you're not closing, when you're not selling, you have to do these things, okay? After the mindset shift, the next thing was the emotion. So I had to use more emotionally manipulative tactics. Now, again, if you want me to, I can do a video breaking that down. But I had to really pull on those heartstrings to make people take action straight away. I had to do a lot of it at the end of the call. People, remember, I've just built out this picture of how their business will look. They've said they wanted it. Now when they're not trying to buy, I have to explain to them, do you not want to do this? I thought you wanted to do this, right? That's how to get some emotion out of them. And then the last thing was just the logic. And here's something that I say to all of my students. I say this to all of our clients as well. You have to actually make it a no-brainer so people feel stupid to say no. So for example, for me, I have the happiness guarantee, but only if you pay on the call, right? Because I want you to be bought into our vision. And with people that are bought into the vision, I want to reward them. Now, that's a logical reason as to why someone should buy now. A lot of the time, people try this whole like, oh, there's no slots left. And if you don't buy now, you're going to run out of slots. People know that you've got slots left. People know they can buy later. So there's no logical reason as to why they should buy now. So that's the reward that people get for taking action quickly. And again, it ties in with making the overall offer a no-brainer. Again, you want anyone that gets off of your call to feel like an idiot for not saying no. And the way that you do that is you make the offer perfect, right? And you make that offer on the call. So for me, what I do is I get rid of any possible problem or bottleneck that someone could have. I make sure I tackle it. So if someone doesn't know how to script their video ads, I take care of the scripting. If someone doesn't know how to edit them, I'll take care of the editing. I give people no logical way out, right? There is nothing. If they're scared of this, I'll make sure that we do this. If you're scared of this, I'll make sure that we do that. There's nowhere to go, right? So I got rid of every single reason that people weren't giving me their money. And then people started to give me their money. It's crazy how that works. So in sales, what I want you guys to do, if you're not closing or if something's not happening, figure out why it's not happening and then tackle each bottleneck, right? That's what I did. It's what helped me to close a lot more deals, and I'm very grateful for it. And I'm going to continue to do that moving forward. Now, something like this is going to happen again at some point. There's going to be times where I'm not closing deals again for a prolonged period of time, and I'm going to have to do this process again. But I urge you guys to do things like this whenever you feel fit. And it doesn't have to just be in sales. It can be in anything. It can be in marketing. It can be in anything. If you're not making as much money as you want, you have to realize that there's a reason that people aren't giving you their money. right? You can't make money, you can only take money. Because of that, you need to think of how and why you aren't able to take money. Why are people not taking their money out of their pocket and putting it in yours? Once you do that, you'll be able to make a lot more money. So that has been Cam, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.